Hi everyone, a wave of Jinteki Honor and Profit spoilers have recently been released. In a previous video, I talked about the three new identities. Now I'll be covering the new agendas. So, as we all know, Jinteki has been receiving the least love in the agenda department compared to the other corps, with only one 3-2 agenda and the lousiest 3-2 agenda in the game at that. These variety of agendas, most Jinteki players find themselves having to use subpar agendas as compared to other factions like NBN, where Astroscript and View and the like are all very good. For Jinteki, yes, a lot of the existing agendas are not really the desirable or the best. But that changes with Honor and Profit. Now that such a large variety of agendas are available for Jinteki, and a lot of them being very powerful, the game has changed. So let's first take a look at the spread of agendas. Here it is, and they are all grouped by advancement costs. What you can notice immediately is that there are still very few big agendas in the Jinteki faction. This, I think, is fine because it fits in with Jinteki, the flavor of Jinteki. The reason why Jinteki has to play fast is because of their ice, in-faction ice, which is all relatively porous, very few end the run, which means they cannot reliably score the big agendas like Wayland and HP can do by just spamming their large pieces of ice. So it's good that the agendas were designed towards that, small agendas but able to be easily scored, being a more fast-paced corp as opposed to something like HP. Yeah, even with the new agendas, there's still only one 3-pointer, which is good. I like that now Jinteki has an in-faction 5-3, so that if there are a few players who wish to go down, explore the route of having few agendas but very big agendas, they can do so without having to use executive retreat and priority requisition, which are both quite subpar for Jinteki. The large number of 3 advanced agendas, they comprise nearly half of the in-faction agendas for Jinteki, means that it's even easier to play the shell game now. Not say easier, but it gives Jinteki more choices. They don't have to use things like False Lead and Dealer Hands. Now there's a lot of choices for Jinteki when it comes to playing the zero advancement shell game. Alright, now let's move on to the card by card analysis. First, I want to look at 2 of the new agendas, Philotic Entanglement and Medical Breakthrough. Philotic Entanglement reads, when you score this agenda, deal 1 net damage for each agenda in the runner's score area. You may only use 1 Philotic Entanglement per deck, so it's like a Director Hearts. Pet project, you can only have 1 of it in your entire deck. The other one is Medical Breakthrough. It reads, lower the advancement requirement of each Medical Breakthrough by 1. This ability is active even while Medical Breakthrough is in the runner's score area. Medical Breakthrough is a 4 advancement, but it will be reduced as the game goes on. And Philotic Entanglement is a 3 advancement, and both are worth 2 agenda points each. Yep. Do you notice any similarities between these two? Yeah, besides the fact that they are worth 2 agenda points each. What's interesting about them is that they both encourage the corp to concede agendas to the runner. I guess you could say the same for Fetal AI, because you, as Jinteki, you really don't want to spend 2 whole turns and 5 credits to advance and score a 2-pointer. So there are quite a few agendas in Jinteki which encourage the runner to grab the agendas instead of the corp, or rather reward you as the corp, even if the runner scores an agenda. Of course, you much rather score Medical Breakthrough than concede it to the runner. However, it gives you a consolation prize. That's the most important thing. As for Philotic Entanglement, you don't want it stolen, but when you score it, the strength of its effect is entirely based on how much the runner has scored in previous turns. So it simply flat out encourages runners to steal your agendas. So this presents a very interesting dynamic that is unique to the Jinteki faction. No other factions can claim this for their agendas. The further ahead the runner is, the more dangerous it gets for the runners. This is, I think, is a very interesting dynamic, and I like it in this game. However, it does detract from the competitiveness of Jinteki, as if Jinteki was not already a very uncompetitive faction, the least of all corps. It's quite bad for tournament settings where the number of gender points scored by the losing side matter. Because if there is a tie, which happens quite often in tournament settings, and they choose to break ties by the number of agenda points scored when you lose, these points matter, and for Jinteki, conceding these agendas suddenly counts against them, which is undesirable. That is the main problem with having agendas like these that reward the corp even when the runner gains an advantage. Moving on to the future perfect, the only 5-3 agenda in the Jinteki pool. It reads, when the runner accesses the future perfect, play a side game. If you and the runner spend a different number of credits, prevent the future perfect from being stolen. Woof! Of course, the caveat. Ignore the ability if the runner accesses the future perfect while it is installed. This basically, in a nutshell, this means that if the runner accesses this agenda from HQ, R&D, archives, they have to win a side game to steal it. It gives Jinteki is another form of R&D protection for Jinteki, that being said, because this agenda will block R&D digging until they can get past it. Usually when you score an agenda, you can continue spamming runs on R&D to see more and more cards and hopefully liberate more agendas. With the future perfect, you're stuck cold. However, I feel that the problem with this agenda is that it's a very big gamble kind of agenda with high stakes. To have 3 whole agenda points hinging on the outcome of a side game, which is essentially a game of luck, makes the game very swingy. 3 agenda points is nearly half of the requirement to win, and to have that leveraging on a game of secretly spending credits, I don't really like it. But it is the only 5-3 agenda in the Jinteki pool, and it is most of the time better than priority requisition and executive retreat. So I reckon we'll be seeing a lot of it in decks that want big agendas. Now, with all these agendas we've seen so far, you may have forgotten that Jinteki was originally a flatline faction. Well, with House of Knives, I think we've put Jinteki back in the spotlight of being a made-to-kill faction. What is House of Knives? It's a 3-1 agenda that reads as such. Place 3 agenda counters on House of Knives when you score it, and anytime you can use a hosted agenda counter, but only during a run. When the runner makes a run, you can deal 1 net damage. And this can only be used once per run. Well, the first time I read this, I was thinking to myself, isn't this essentially... But this may as well just read deal 1 brain damage, because that is what it is. Most of the flatlines in Jinteki come from careless runs by the runner, and House of Knives exacerbates this by posing a threat saying your hand size is the number of cards in your hand is reduced by 1 every time you run. like a brain damage essentially, because whenever you activate this, the runner has 1 less card in the hand, which is what brain damage does. And furthermore, this is better than brain damage because you can activate it 3 times over the course of the game, which means that the runner will lose 3 cards. For a runner that doesn't have any sort of heat recursion, they are losing their entire deck, and flatlining as a result suddenly becomes a very probable outcome. House of Knives is probably one of the strongest agendas that has been printed for Jinteki, and I think this is what 3-1 agenda should be like, unlike the agenda next to it. Unorthodox predictions is still decent, especially in Tannin Institute, because it deters running, which allows the corp to gain the bonus of Tannin Institute. But even then, it only lasts for 1 turn. So unorthodox predictions looked pretty cool when it was spoiled, but by virtue of being a 3-1 and being such a temporal ability, I think most people realize that even the neutral 3-1s are situationally more useful than unorthodox predictions, like false lead to flatline a runner unexpectedly or Gila hands for income. These are better than unorthodox predictions. Let's zoom back out to the big picture of agendas. Now, most of the agendas, both existing and new, still have their users. They have their own niche areas where they contribute to, and that's very good. Some agendas actively contribute to flatlines, noted by the pink triangles. As for the green triangles, these contribute to winning by accumulating agenda points. Like medical breakthrough allows you to score 2 agenda points easily after the 4-2 is out on the table. Next one costs 3-2, and then there's a 2-2, which makes it very easy for the cop to score. And then there, of course, there's clone retirement, which is a 2-1, which is always easy to score. And then there are the yellow ones. The yellow circles denote that these agendas have a good agenda point to advancement cost ratio. These good ratios can never be found on neutral agendas. As you notice, neutral agendas don't have 3-2s. There are no 2-1s. There are a couple of 5-3s, but aside from those, neutral agendas are all give very low agenda points in contrast to the amount of credits it takes to advance them and score. Notice that most of these yellow agendas are recent, meaning that they weren't in the core set or any of the earlier data packs. This reflects how difficult it was in the past for Jinteki to win via 7 agenda points. Now, with these agendas that take much less effort for the corp to score, yet reap a decent amount of returns, Jinteki should have an easier time to score via agenda points, which is quite important because, like most other factions, you need to have more than one way to win. You cannot just outright rely on flatlining the runner to win. You need to have your alternative win condition. Now, there are a couple of agendas that don't fall into any of these categories. Nisei MK2 is one of them, but Nisei deserves a special mention because its ability is inherently very powerful. The moment Nisei is scored, it forces the runner to change their playstyle. No longer can they happily index or the maker's eye run your R&D because these runs can be aborted anytime as the corp so chooses. This brings me to the conclusion of this video, and the conclusion is that there's only one agenda left in the pool that is really lousy, that doesn't fit into any of those good categories, and doesn't have a very powerful special ability. That's right, I'm looking at you, unorthodox predictions. You are downright mediocre, and I don't think you'll see much play in upcoming Jinteki decks. Sorry, no love for you. Thanks for watching. Do leave your thoughts on the new agendas, Jinteki agendas, in the comments below. And that's all from me. Goodbye.